Today, we're jumping into a wild story from the book of 2 Kings. It's about a king named Ahaz and one single decision that pretty much rewired an entire nation's faith. It's a story about what happens when political pressure meets religious conviction, and it all kicks off with one fateful trip.
So, let me ask you this. How does a country's spiritual foundation just crumble? You'd think it would be some huge dramatic event, right? A war, a disaster? Well, in this story, it's actually much quieter than that. It all starts with one king on one political trip making one really, really bad choice. Let's get into it.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our guy, King Ahaz of Judah, is in a seriously tough spot. He's stuck between these massive warring empires, and he's basically just trying not to get squashed. The political pressure is immense. And the story doesn't kick off on a battlefield. It starts at what you might call a high-stakes political summit. King Ahaz travels all the way to Damascus to meet the king of Assyria, this powerhouse named Tiglath-Pileser. And while he's there, he sees something that catches his eye, an altar. And that's where everything changes.
Now, here is the crucial detail you absolutely have to get. Ahaz isn't in Damascus as an equal, not even close. He is there as a vassal king. Basically, that means he's a subordinate. He has an overlord. His kingdom's survival, his right to rule, it all depends on him staying in the good graces of the Assyrian emperor. So he's not a tourist admiring the architecture, he's a subject, desperate to please his master.
And check out the timing here. Ahaz shows up in Damascus right after the Assyrians have conquered it. So the city he's walking into isn't some neutral territory, it's now a showcase of Assyrian imperial power. It's designed to scream, "We're in charge now," and that includes showing off their imperial religion.
And it's in this super high-pressure environment that Ahaz gets an idea. A solution to his political problem. A spark that's about to set his entire kingdom's faith on fire.
He sees this massive, impressive Assyrian-style altar and thinks, I want one. And wow, the contrast here could not be more stark. Back in Jerusalem, you've got Yahweh's altar. It's designed commanded by God, a symbol of their special covenant. And then you have this thing from Damascus. It's a purely imperial design. It's not a symbol of faith. It's a symbol of allegiance to an empire. It's a foreign object that has no business in their sacred space.
And this is where things just go completely off the rails. Ahaz doesn't just admire it from afar. He has someone draw up the exact architectural plans and sends them back home to Uriah, the high priest. In that one move, the whole system gets flipped upside down. The king is now dictating the terms of worship, not the law of Moses. It's literally political sycophancy disguised as religion.
So how does this imperial idea, this souvenir from Damascus, actually become a physical thing back in Jerusalem? Well, what's truly mind-boggling is just how fast it happens and how nobody puts up a fight. It's basically a coup right in the temple courtyard.
I mean, just look at this breakdown. The high priest, Uriah, the one guy whose entire job is to guard the holiness of the temple, builds this foreign altar. And he does it immediately. No protest, no, hey, your majesty, are you sure about this? No checking the Torah, no calling up a prophet, nothing. This isn't just one man failing. This is a complete and total institutional collapse. The priesthood just rolled over and became a department of the state.
So when King Ahaz finally gets back from this trip, he doesn't just, admire the new construction, he gets right to work. He personally goes to this new altar and starts offering sacrifices. And we're not talking about some minor ritual. He transfers every single major category of worship, the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, all of it, over to this new foreign structure.
And let's be super clear about this. This wasn't in addition to the temple, this was a replacement. By moving all the official, national sacrifices to this new altar, Ahaz has effectively sidelined the one God actually commanded. He has, for all intents and purposes, kicked Yahweh's altar out of its own house and installed a foreign one in its place.
Okay, so this spiritual coup immediately has very real, very physical consequences. The actual layout of the temple, the very architecture, is about to get rearranged to match this new, messed-up theology.
Think about how it was supposed to be. Originally, the bronze altar that God had commanded Moses to build stood right there in the center of the temple courtyard. It was the focal point. Everything revolved around it. It was the heart of their entire relationship with God.
But when Ahaz is done, he takes God's own altar and just shoves it off to the north side, basically putting it in a corner. This isn't just redecorating, you guys. This is theology by architecture. Yahweh's literally being marginalized, moved to the side in his own temple. Then, Ahaz makes it official policy. He literally gives each altar a new job description. The great foreign altar, that's now the main stage. That's for all the big national and royal sacrifices. It gets primary status. And the Lord's bronze altar, the original one, well, it gets demoted. It's now for the king's private inquiry only. Think about that. God has gone from being the Lord of the nation to a kind of personal fortune teller for the king.
And then we get this one short, absolutely devastating line. Thus did Uriah the priest, according to all that King Ahaz commanded. That's it. Total, unquestioning compliance. The surrender is complete. The silence from the priesthood is just deafening.
And you'd think it would stop there, but no, it gets worse. Ahaz starts dismantling the sacred furniture from Solomon's temple, these beautiful historic pieces. He's liquidating holy assets, probably stripping them down for their bronze and gold to pay the crushing tribute he owes Assyria. The compromise that started with just looking at an altar has now turned into actively plundering God's house to pay off a foreign king.
So, what was the endgame here? All this compromise, all this appeasement, did it actually buy Judah the security and prosperity that Ahaz was so desperate for? Let's take a look at the legacy he left behind.
This timeline really tells the whole story, doesn't it? Right in the middle of Ahaz's reign, the northern kingdom of Israel is completely wiped off the map by the very same empire Ahaz was trying to please. So much for protection. His policies didn't lead to strength. They left his kingdom spiritually bankrupt and politically weaker than ever, just clinging on for dear life.
So, if we boil this whole crazy story down, what are the big takeaways? First, when you see a nation start importing foreign worship, it's often a giant red flag for political submission. Second, buildings and their layouts aren't neutral. Architecture is theology you can walk through. And finally, and maybe this is the scariest one, a compromise that starts with just trying to get a little help can spiral until it ends in the total replacement of who you are.
And all of this leaves us with one big, lingering question. You know, King Ahaz probably thought he was just being a smart politician, a pragmatist, just trying to survive. But his story forces us to ask, when we let politics and power call the shots for our faith, what is it that we ultimately lose?